Well, I thought I'd do a quick video before I go away. Obviously, it's been, as usual, a busy month. I am going to Vietnam for 6 weeks on Sunday, and I wanted to get all the alts annual updates done before I left. And I was going really well, but it slowed down the last week. And like once Bitcoin starts doing something, then I tend to get distracted. As you can see, I'm dressed like a complete Eskimo because it's bloody cold in Portugal now for somebody who's basically got Australian blood. So yeah, looking forward to going away. But I thought I'd do a quick update on the alts and the majors because as I put Bitcoin and Ether updates in the Telegram channel, but obviously majors, it's a bit harder just to do 8,000 updates. On Bitcoin, like I'm not gonna look at it in detail at all now because yeah, so go and read the Telegram channel. Although by the time I get to post this video, it might be too late anyway. Like I had, I've had some sort of tentative long entries. Like my preferred long entry remains down 75k. I've got this box marked as the 113 to 127 fib extension because sometimes we can drop. Once we've made a low, we can sort of stop hunt into that area. So we made the low back in November, we could potentially stop hunt into that area. So I would be watching there, assuming we haven't bounced already. There's lots of supply above. I mean, like, as of last week, we came off 3 weeks supply. I hadn't really done a proper update on that one. Where was the 3 weeks? 3 weeks actually here, but no, it confirmed. So we did go, I think, higher inside it. Wasn't a strong supply, yeah. So we did go higher inside. It wasn't a strong supply, but we came up to a 3-day level inside it, and it was a weekly level on CME. Got a really nice short off that. A little bit hard to get into because it's so messy and it's hard to know where you might stop hunt. There's a CME gap a little bit higher, and there's obviously various things going on higher. But like I say, like watch the last update for the proper detail on the levels. But just for today and what I put in the Telegram channel, if we drop it, so what I'm looking at is, are we going to reject just off this 4 hour here, or possibly with the stop hunt through into the hourly just above? If we get higher, then I'll reconsider. And you can look for long entries here just on low time frames if you want to, although it's looking pretty slow so far, even though it's only just the start of New York. If we come down, then there's a 4 hour zone there, and then this box for the 113. I mean, essentially you're knife catching. So like really just be careful, you're just watching for reactions, and obviously the zones aren't really that far apart here. Then we've got the 3 monthly level below. Comparing to Ether, I was looking at just the confluence side of things. If we do come down into that box on Bitcoin, then there's a chance we'll come into this monthly zone that I've wanted for a while. Like I've set the alert a little bit higher because there's a 3-day demand up here, but there's the orange arrow there. And then the 61 fib is actually, sorry, it's lower. 61 fib is quite a lot lower. So if Bitcoin bounces in the 113 to 127 box, then this is likely to hold in this area. If Bitcoin wants to go down to the 3 month below, then it's likely ETH is going to come deeper inside this zone. So this will still hold the monthly zone. So as again, if you're new to following me, I put arrows because I'm putting alerts for just above the tops of zones. But in this case, excuse my messy chart just showing the low time frame one, but this is the monthly zone. So it can still come all the way down to, just above 2K or 2,100 and still hold a higher low here. So while the alert's set and for provisionally watching up here, you're just watching what the lower time frames are doing. Similarly on the short side, like I haven't put much new CME gaps above and various other things, but I haven't put anything new since the drop yesterday. Just looking for what reaction you might get here as a daily level, the daily open, and the 4 hour supply right there if we come up into that area. So those are the kind of the initial things I'm looking at on Bitcoin and Ether. Now moving on to the others chart. So we've got the analysis that I've done, again, shown this so many times. So we were coming down here in a very slow grind. We left a lot of stops above. So I was wondering if we would get, so back, I think in around, early December, I was going, okay, maybe we're going to stop hunt all of this, or at least have some alts do that. So some alts have, but actually not very many. Like most of them, what happened then later is we then created a 2 month supply here. And again, that's what we see on a lot of alts. So they had this 2 month supply, but then a lot of them have the stops above. But in fact, what we're seeing on most alts is they have just rejected off these 2 month zones, like all the alerts I've put. There's a handful that have kind of run through and taken these stops. but quite most of those are just a wick and then straight back down again. Then, yeah, so what I'd had was this provisional black line going all the way up. We take all the stops out. That was the optimistic black line. Then we made 2-month supply, and I said, well, actually, it's probably more likely we do something like this. So I had the lower black line, which is basically what had happened, looking for rejection in that circle. Let me just hide all that stuff again. And then more recently, again, once we got the rejection off this 2-month, I was like, again, the optimistic path would be this green line, again, looking for the retest here to take out the stops. Again, we've seen some, so a lot of alts just have basically the same structure. So we've seen a lot of alts basically, depending on the timing they hit here, these 4 or 5 day demands, some of them are bounced, some of them haven't. Like if they had a lot more stops below, if they weren't in like a decent demand to the left, if they were like so many at all-time lows, they've either done a tiny bounce or just come through it. Some bounced and gave a high, but actually not very many, like for the most part. And what I was looking at as a higher probability is this red line. And that's what we've seen on most alts. We got this just sort of mini bounce in here. Some of them got up to local supply. In the case of the majors, like they didn't get very high at all. But some of them bounced in here, but it just depended on the timing of hitting this zone. Like some of them, obviously, they're at different stages. And as I always said, my preference is very hard to pick the alt that's going to break out. So unless you're on Twitter and following everybody's, following all those, the trending analysis, then it's going to be quite hard to pick that one. Every day I sort my watch list and I find like 1 or 2, it's probably 2 or 3 or 5 maximum alts that are in the big green. And then mostly we're in probably more red, but then just sort of, between -5 and +5%. So to pick those few that are going to break out, either you're a genius, in which case, let me know and tell me how you're doing it, or it's lucky. But yeah, for the most part, if you're buying here and holding on, hoping for that big bounce, you're not going to get it. There's one, for example, there's 1 or 2 like hype, for example. I didn't manage to get the entry. Eventually I tried, but I was a bit early and we had one last drop before the pump yesterday. And that, but sorry, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. That was on monthly demand. So that's more understandable why it's pumped. The other thing I've got of interest is the football coins. So I think we'll have a quick look at those at the end of this, actually. But yeah, the football coins are potentially interesting because we've got the World Cup coming up. But then I did have a look at a few of them yesterday. I need to find the full list because I can't remember all of them, and a couple have been delisted. So my longer list has diminished slightly. Yeah, with the World Cup coming up, it's possible these are going to pump. And we did have a couple of those that made 2-month demands, which is unusual because most of these things have 2-month supply or monthly supply. So yeah, anyway, just to finish this off, we made these 3-week supplies in here, the same as what we made on Bitcoin and Ether. And that's why we had the strong rejection yesterday on Bitcoin and Ether. They had come up into the start of 3-week supply. And then, as I've always said, this red line was my higher probability, based on the bigger picture, based on this head and shoulders, based on this macro double top. That really, if I was trading this, my target actually would be down here, but that's pretty horrible for the alt market. But, probably at least I've got the red line to the weekly here. This is still a support. I don't like it. It's wicked through. It's hit arguably a bit above there and hit again here. So once you've hit 3 or 4 times and the head and shoulders, poor head and shoulders pattern, but head and shoulders nonetheless, would make me think we would go through this zone. So I'm looking, obviously, this zone, if we're going to get a bounce there again, this zone, if we choose to go deeper, and that really doesn't bode well for the alt market if that's the case. Having said that, we're at support here. We might make a 2-day supply today. So again, I just wanted to see the structure. This can still hold here. It is the 3rd hit. It's dropping deeper inside, but it is, at the base of this last up move. So there is a chance we get some either more time here. My other issue on this was timing, whether this is ready. The same with Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin ready to break down? It feels a bit soon, but I don't know why I'm thinking that. This is a gut instinct thing. It's interesting that back in the day, I remember dismissing gut instinct when I was in my 20s. Or somebody had said, they'd make decisions based on gut, and I was very dismissive and snorting over that, saying that you shouldn't make decisions based on your gut. It should be based only on data and fact, because I'm very mathematical and I'm very fact driven. However, as I've got older and more matured, I've come to realize that actually your gut instinct is, if your gut instinct is based on, like, for instance, I still, no offense to young people, I still don't support gut instinct, particularly for younger people. But I think if you have a lot of experience in something over a long period of time, hence young people, okay, maybe somebody young can have a lot of experience. So, but if you have a lot of experience, I do think there is some value. Like for me, I look at things and I know I've seen patterns before, and I may not be able to specifically articulate that, but there is a pattern has remained in my head from when I've seen things happen in the chart in the past, and having, you know, stared obsessively at charts for, what is it, like probably 8 years now, 9 years. Like I have a good sense of, I've seen that before, and I try and find it to look back so I can confirm what happened. So I do have data to support it eventually, but I do tend to get a gut instinct of what something might do. Anyway, the only thing, so in this is obviously a fairly bearish analysis. The only thing in its favor, let me just look actually. So that's others. Total E100 is basically the same thing, you know, rejected up here. It did come up into that zone there. And obviously now is dropping and is breaking down, trying to break down this support here. Also has the same 3-weekly supply. I have an alert down here, again, looking like it could potentially get to the annual level. Sorry, this chart, they did release the data when they first gave the data for this new ticker on TradingView, Total E100. But then they deleted the data, so hence the left side of my chart is blank, but I still have zones drawn in. So yeah, that's, so obviously Total E100 is looking a bit more bearish. Total DeFi is looking better, or was. So structurally, this is better. Obviously, it doesn't have the 3-week supply. It's dropping now. But so again, this may get a bounce in here, which may then mean that others doesn't fall as much as I thought it would, or maybe even just others can get down to here. For that, I think Total DeFi would get lower. I don't know. It's interesting anyway. I've always said Total DeFi is stronger. In its defense is the only thing is this others dominance. But I don't know, I can't really see this going up. Like, so it is, you can see that it's going up. It has gone up this week, despite the fact alts have dropped. So basically what it's saying is that others are dropping less than Bitcoin, because we still also obviously have US dollar dominance going up. So I don't know how value this is, because I've used it for a reasonably long time, but I can't recall a particular instance when others dominance is strong, but others market cap is weaker. So does it just mean that alts aren't going to fall as much as Bitcoin, or does it actually mean this is maybe a lead indicator for alt season, and we are going to get a second bounce on the others market cap chart and go and take those stops above? I don't know. It's just something to observe. It's not something I would particularly trade off. I don't like the other dominance charts other than US dollar dominance particularly, but it's kind of interesting that this is holding here as, again, 3 bounces on support. It's difficult because it's still this is a 3-month supply that it's hit here. It's also made a monthly below. I think I wanted to see also, like, it's come down a bit today. This brown line here, the dash line, is maybe it creates monthly demand. So that could be interesting if we do get a pump over the next 24 hours or 36 hours. If we close up here, maybe this can get a push. But we'd still then, obviously, yeah, that would mean the money flowing into alts, and I don't know, is that going to happen with Bitcoin doing what it's doing? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe if in that period of time Bitcoin has fallen off a cliff. Bitcoin is kind of the opposite actually at the moment. So show you the monthly quickly. So it's the monthly candle is just closing in range at the moment. But if it closes below this green candle, then this potentially has monthly supply. If it can suddenly gain strength and close above here, then it's going to have monthly demand. So that's going to be interesting to see again in the next 24 hours, although I suspect it will just close indecisively. It's just messing around in range at the moment, and it could really break either way. Like initially, it had made 3-week supply, but then it flipped it back to 3-week demand. So again, it's slightly confusing and slightly contrary to what I see on the rest of the market. But I always wonder how accurate BTC dominance is, because I find instances, like I think it was here I was looking, and I've seen this before, you know, that where we had a green candle here, but Bitcoin was dumping in that day, and I don't really understand why that should be the case. Maybe it's something I need to think through a little bit more. So yeah, others dominance kind of gives me a small bit of hope, maybe, in the breaking of the trend line, and I don't know, we'll see. Total DeFi dominance, again, goes the other way again, and again is opposite to what I see on market cap. So I see the market cap chart as a bit stronger and approaching support, but total DeFi dominance is now at this sort of 2 week and 2 month supply on a retest. And obviously you wouldn't be buying DeFi right now. So, and if DeFi comes back down here, then we're going to see that DeFi market cap chart. Let's go back to that quickly. Then obviously it's unlikely this is going to hold here if the DeFi dominance wants to go back down to support. So again, a little bit confusing. And then finally, total E100 dominance obviously is looking ropey again. We have broken on what I'm believing this weekly in. Again, as I said, the total E100 charts, the dominance is the same. We don't have history, but obviously I'll be leaving that in because I can't redraw it. But you can see it's because it's attempting to hold support at the base of this. But again, I'm not overly confident, and there's quite a long drop there to the next monthly demand if it wants to go all the way down there. So really it's others, which is the kind of bit of an anomaly on this. So yeah, we'll see a bit more, but as everybody knows, this is the one I follow more than anything. This is the one I find the most reliable for looking when I should be jumping into shorts and longs on alts. It's doing what I thought at the moment. Okay, so the TLDR summary version is we are back at support on this. So looking like we might create a 2-day supply. My bias is down, but if we do hold this level, there is hope that we go for the stops above. But basically my bias is still down. Like I think it's unlikely that we do this up green line move now after the third hit. So I'd be more inclined to see if 2-day supply confirms today, which is looking pretty likely. And then look for a rejection there, like alts maybe to get a bounce, then a rejection there for a short further down to here or deeper. But yeah, just be very careful on alts. And yeah, as I said on alts previously, like it's very hard to pick the ones that are going to go long on. I did put some posts yesterday. I tend to not post individual alts very much, so I spend most of my time like writing alerts or doing charting and doing alerts for the charts so we get the zones when they're hit. But interestingly, it's when the whole market's dropping is the ones that the time that I tend to look for long entry, or the long ones that are stronger. But mainly because I'm getting bored because everything else is bearish, and we need for them to retest before FOMOing in late. So I did put a few in the channel yesterday, so I can go and have a look at those in a minute. But yeah, we're 17 minutes. I was supposed to be doing this quickly. So what we do have here is the majors is just mixed. So on the old majors, we have TRX, Litecoin, XRP, and BCH. We have TRX and BSO. So all these entries have been shared in my previous video and all the analysis. So you go back and watch the previous video because I'm not going to look at these in detail now. I just wanted to show you maybe some new entries that I have because I can't remember what point I actually updated it. So TRX, I did have an aggressive short there that I did since the last video. There was an 8-hour supply, I think subsequently became a daily, now back into weekly demand, so we can see what the reaction is there. BCH was the one I was waiting for a long time on to come down to this level. Like a lot of people were looking for the breakout here. I was looking for shorts. This was still in a monthly supply. It did break through it. However, grayscale BCH chart didn't. So I was remaining a little bit more bear biased on this. We got a bounce off this zone. Then I had an alert here for 2-day supply, which I did talk about in the previous video. The alert actually went, but the zone, it rejected off this daily level just below. So I've reset the alert on that just in case it comes back for a swing failure. Having said that, now it's back in 2-month demand here. So this was the kind of the critical, again, very big zone, but the critical kind of area I wanted to see hold on BCH if it was going to continue to be bullish. And again, my reticence on BCH, as I've said in previous videos, is I don't think this is impulsive. Like this is not, if you look at the impulsive moves on BCH, this is just nasty. So I've been like fairly like, while we do have 2-month demand, like supply and demand trumps everything for me. So while we have 2-month demand and then 3 months down here, 1-year retest, which I got missed here, while we have PA like this, I'm still quite reticent, but we'll say, we've got the alerts there and we'll see. So currently at 2-month level, obviously you can go deeper inside. We've got the 3-day demand down there and then 3 months down here should we get tests there. And then that was a new entry I added if we stop up into that 2-day supply up there again. But it's a bit more tenuous now. We're coming from the 2-month demand. Ripple's just simply breaking down. So Ripple and Litecoin led this whole thing, but do Ripple first and I'll have a look at Litecoin. Ripple again still holding this bigger range, but like most alts and like I just said on others, it's broken 3 weeks of made 3 week supply here. A lot of the alts and these majors, I put alerts at 4-day or 5-day supply inside this 3 week, but we barely got any bounce. You know, it's just rejected off immediate supply here. As I talked about in a previous video, a lot of these majors also I had alerts for, you know, the start of this last up move, but they were ones I was very tentative about because so many of them are coming off higher time frame supply at the highs. So I was hoping, you know, to get maybe scalp bounces up to here on this, but most of them didn't really get that high. So I'm surprised these are broken, and you should be, again, if you watched my last video. So on this, you know, previously I think I had an alert on the 12-hour. I moved it down to this 4-day inside the 3 week, but we're still dropping off there. Again, could still hold support here if it wants to, but 3-day and 3-day demands below, and then this annual all the way down here if it really does fall off a cliff. But be very careful on these now because the supports have just been tested so many times, and with all the supply above. Litecoin, I was actually interested. I wondered if it was the leader of the drop. Litecoin dropped here while Bitcoin was still going up, and I may have made a comment in the channel. I was like, that's interesting. Why is Litecoin dropping? And I think Bitcoin, it wasn't this. Was it helpful? It kind of ish. I think Bitcoin did have one more pump after that, but then now obviously the whole market has followed Litecoin down, so that was kind of interesting. So we had the short entry up here. It was on 3-month supply up here. So again, if you follow my previous videos, you'll know I go those high time frames, same as what we see on the others chart with the 2-month supply, I think on that. This had 3-month here, so I had some aggressive shorts. Huge zones can go much higher in the zone, but we got the instant rejection there. Then I had an alert here for daily supply, so that got tested and dropped. And now on this, we made a 2-week and 3-week supply up here. So I've again re-alerted again larger zones if we come back up there. However, again, the bounce really didn't get very far. Litecoin, I still don't have any longs on, as I've said again many times. The zones back here have just been tested far too many times, and I don't consider them strong zones. So, you know, really on Litecoin, I won't be wanting to buy this unless I see something interesting, or it comes all the way back down to this 3-day zone down here, or even lower perhaps. But we'll see. That doesn't mean it's going to go there. Like, it can pick up support anywhere, but just there's nothing clear to me, so hence no long entries. So that's the old majors. Moving on to the new majors. Again, just do these individually and quickly. BNB, this was one of the few that was slightly more bullish, had a 2-week demand here. So I did have an alert for bounce off that 2-week. Again, didn't get very far. Made 4-day supply. Again, I hadn't put shorts on this because of the 2-week demand. It's gone lower. It's still holding the zone, but it's gone lower inside. But yeah, again, this is just a little range. It was a week, 2-week demand. It could still hold here for a move up. But I'll just see on that. My preferred entries were always down here on BNB in the bigger picture, but I'm just looking for these local entries, just looking for scalps, as I always talked about. Again, just drop here, retracement, hit the short entry. The shorts are much more reliable in general. Link was more similar to Litecoin. Again, I'd had some aggressive entries here. We had made a big 3-month supply here. Like Link back in when was that, mid 2025 was a bit challenging. It had made a 6-month supply here, and I think it came and tested here, or maybe it was here, but it ended up basically going right back to the top of 6-month supply. So that's what you have to be a little bit wary of on, so you can see up here, I think this was the whole 6-month zone here, and obviously it can reject right here, or it can retrace the whole thing. So I was slightly wary on Link because of that's what it did last time here. So I had the initial alert there. You can see on the 3-month when it hit the 3-month supply here, it did go up a bit higher inside, and in fact didn't really give a clean entry. I had an entry here for a lower high, and it just wicked out the high there. But what I again hadn't got on this was a long entry, and I did say in the previous video that those 4-day demands that we had here, I was only putting alerts on the majors that had not come off macro supply here, and or that had made a higher high like that. So, and I think on the previous, I think the old majors didn't show any of those. Oh no, Ripple I think I had on. And like, sorry, TRX and BCH are just different structures anyway. But So in the case of Link, I didn't have an alert here for long because I expected if this does play out that this is a 3-month supply, so it should take out that low and possibly even further deeper lows. I'd have to look at the structure to figure out exactly where the target would be if you really did trade just the 3-month. The next possible zone of interest, obviously we're not there yet, is just taking out some of these stops from these wicks. Again, not necessarily a zone I'm overly confident about, hence why it's a black cross. And then 3-month demand a lot lower, should we get that bigger drop. DOGE coin, again, the same as everything else. So this one, yeah, it had a decent bounce. It hadn't hit major supply up here. So I did still have a long entry on that 4-day. I think it's a 4-day demand in there on the daily chart at the moment. But again, not much of a bounce before it made 3-week supply and dropped lower. Again, I'd added short entry for 4-day, 5-day supply up here. Hasn't tested it or didn't test it. And we did manage to get a short entry on the retest up here, even though I wanted kind of higher on this originally. And we got a little bit lower and it could pick up this old weekly level. Again, with the wick going through it, it's hard to judge. See what happens when we hit that level on Doggy. And then finally ADA. So ADA more along the same lines as Link. I was bullish on this like back from before, but then it flipped this 6-month. It was a 6-month demand into 6-month supply. So again, then I became more bearish. So we were looking for long entries through here. It was a little hard to get into, but then the initial short off 4-day supply up here inside this big 6-month, and the retest gave a really nice drop, and it's taken out the low. Then delete that zone now because it's gone through. So again, I hadn't got the entry here for another entry here for a higher low based on the fact we were coming off higher time frame supply. And also have added a new 4-day supply in there. And yeah, various zones higher. On the bottom end, again, we've got these 2 wicks here. Very hard to judge, it's kind of come, this is still a monthly demand here, so we could get a bounce here off this top of this monthly demand. So that is a possibility. However, not something I've alerted at this stage, but I might watch out for that because while we've wicked inside it, and wicked obviously through it here, it can pick up as support again. So maybe that would be an interim level for ADA, but coming off 6-month supply, again, expect a bigger drop. And we've got this 3-week level down there. There's a yearly open level, and then really slightly concerningly, another picture I've drawn on ADA that I've shown a few times, and I'll just quickly show again here is, let me see, is it this? Put it in there. Yeah. So again, this is looking at the impulse and then corrective moves that we were looking for a long time at this just being a correction of this larger up move. This could come to here to make a higher low, or it could drop down and now just play out, and we've got this as a big A, B, C. So that's the risk on ADA from the bigger picture perspective, but obviously we can potentially get bounces in between. And the upside, yeah, I still haven't refined. I said there were a lot of entries up here, a lot of possible entries that I haven't refined. It's difficult because normally when we get the higher time frame zones, I'm just looking at the higher time frame, but we've got 3-month, 2-month in there, 3 weeks, couple of 3 weeks, it's hard to know. And is it going to take these trend line stops out and run all the way back to the top in a decent up move like that? But locally for the moment, it's down, it's still in a downtrend. And yeah, if anything changes, I can update on these in the next video. And then finally, the new majors B. What have we got? One of the things let's start with Atom. One of the things I'd said in the last video that we had, I think by that stage, I had a handful of the majors that hit this 4-day demand and taken wicks off it. I'll just stick with that for now. But I'd said Atom was still somewhere up here. And I've said again, and I've also said in the premium channel, like my sense is that Atom's going to come down into this area, and I don't really want to look for longs until Atom's here. So what we've then seen on some of the other majors is obviously they've now broken this zone, like we saw on Link and ADA. Some of them did get a provisional bounce, so like a scalpable or tradable bounce to some extent, but the wicks in some cases would have made it quite hard to enter on others. So a little bit mixed. So now Atom is, I mean, Atom is obviously not something that I normally, it just screws me over by not doing what I want it to do. But actually here it's been pretty nice. We've got a whole lot of long entries at the bottom and a few short entries at the top. And it has now hit this 2-day and 5-day demand. Again, it's still in a downtrend. Like while this could bounce here, just be aware this is still in a downtrend. At least on the plus side on this, we didn't, again, hit major supply, so hence I put the long alert. It has hit this weekly zone here. We have wicked through it on this chart, and this is a 6-month level there. Let me just check that quickly. Okay, yeah, so that's actually not ideal. So now with hindsight, we've flipped this 6-month level. So these entries that I had on 4 or 5 day supply are at that 6-month level. So again, longs on this are highly dubious. If it does hold, at least it's got nice trend line stops, so it's worth keeping an eye on. However, just be conscious that those entries are, from a 4-day perspective, still in a downtrend, and then also at that 6-month level as well. But just need to keep an eye on this, see what it does from here. And also, yeah, if it can go down, it could still go down to the bottom of this zone if Bitcoin wants to go lower. So keep an eye on this for a couple of days and see if it holds here, see if it gives you some more consolidation here or something that's tradable. Like obviously what you don't want to see is something like this. You know, you need to see a decent move up and then a decent demand created. You know, if it comes up to here, breaking that zone up into this 4-day supply, then we'd need, if it does that before entry, then we just need to see if we're going to start making higher lows at this point. Or just watch the lower time frames and see how you go on that. DOT, let's go for DOT next. So DOT, as I said, so my thing on DOT hadn't hit a major supply up here. It's hit this 3-day zone. It had left, I was hoping it would stop punt up here. Did go higher and it stop punted this first. I had an aggressive entry here on 2-day supply, which gave a little scalp, but then eventually would have taken that out and didn't get re-entries. But because it left those stops there again, I thought it was worth looking for the possibility that you might get another run long up to take out those highs or to go up to better supply. Unfortunately, it didn't, so you can see it wicked quite hard off that level. So like I said, that's what I said before, wouldn't necessarily be tradable, but wicked quite hard off that level, went straight up into 4-day supply and then didn't hold on, you know, there was no new demand for it to hold on the next test. So again, this is just looking pretty bearish. It made 3-week supply. I haven't, again, so I didn't add, so it's coming off the 3-week there just aggressively. It has got, I think, yeah, a 4-day supply up here and a 4-day here. So this, a lot of it, I haven't talked about this so much on these majors, but again, most of them are looking like this in a lot of alts. You know, they've got a 4-day supply here and they've got a 4-day supply here and they're in a big 3-week zone. So in a lot of the cases, I've alerted these 4 days, as I've shown on the last few charts. Which I don't think I've really talked about that on these ones, but you can see them all highlighted anyway on the previous majors. But in the case of DOT, I didn't because of those potential stops that it could run for above. And certainly, like, well, you can look here for a swing fail of this low, but obviously there's nothing here to the left. This is just all-time low on DOT. If you really want to trade this, I would say look at the Bitcoin chart, so the DOT BTC chart, the Bitcoin pair, to see if the Bitcoin pair, which is probably at all-time low as well, to be fair, but if that's at anywhere decent, that gives this confluence for a long. But there's no real reason for this to hold here. It's just sort of a mean interim level. However, if it does swing fail this low, then there is a chance it will go for those highs up there. So again, on this, I haven't put at this stage any new short entries on it. But I might reconsider that, like I changed my mind at times. But for the same, yeah, so DOT and Atom, I haven't added like short re-entries. In contrast on NEAR, I have. So again, NEAR's made a lower low, and NEAR does have, you know, it's got this big monthly support, got the 3-week down here, which I've alerted for possible long. But again, I don't know, NEAR's been weaker, it's come off 3-week supply. So it's made this new 3-week supply. It's got quite a clean 4-day in there if it does want to run up here. So I think it's worth watching that. You know, it's stop hunted some stops here, or they left a few more. Again, just challenging and looking at zones as they hit. But like really, if this is just continuing a downtrend with a very small retracement here, like at that point, it's still going to be a downtrend. If it wants to reverse, that's fine. Then maybe it can come back up here and then we're just going to hit 3 months supply. But we'll just see what happens there. Similarly on this, because it hadn't hit a decent supply up here, I did alert for a possible long, but it gave very little off that zone. Okay, it gave a wick on the lower time frame. Doesn't look like it went back up to hit that zone. Yeah, so it just came up to the 3-week level. That wouldn't have been confirmed at that stage. But again, just still looking pretty crap, these bounces. And as I expected, we talked about this, all these bounces, we just thought, okay, well, then people get excited, but then it's just a bearish retest. So the ones these that have made lower lows, it's fairly unsurprising. So we've got NEAR and SOL have made lower lows, DOT's on its way to there, and Atom may hold a higher low. But I think I said many times in previous videos as well, we're just looking for, are we getting a bounce? Are we getting a higher low? At this stage, we are still in downtrends, and there is no reason for us to get a higher low, but we might. So worth considering. Then finally on the majors, we've got Solana. So Solana, unfortunately, and like I think also I commented in previous updates, these, I don't know what I was really doing on these entries. They just weren't very good ones. I think it was like a 12-hour supply. Sometimes I get a bit bored when we've got very slow PA and I put things in that are more like lower probability and more aggressive. And when I look in hindsight, I'm just like, what are you doing? So this had made 2-3 months supply up here. And obviously that's the one level I hadn't actually alerted. I think I knew about it, but my better entry would have been on, coming up onto this 5-day and filling a bit more of that gap. So we never made it up to that entry. And for some reason I had 2 more aggressive entries here. And I don't think there was anything high time frame. Oh, there was 3-4 day supply in there. Yeah, so maybe I was just being a little bit more aggressive. I think on this also, I didn't necessarily think, well, we had the long for this daily demand. I think I wasn't necessarily overly optimistic it would hold. But anyway, I don't get them right all the time. There's poor short entries on SOL, at least decent long there. And again here, that retest coming off 2 months supply. I think I'd had it in previously. I think the difference with SOL, I think SOL did have a 2-week demand. Yeah, so a little bit like BNB. I think BNB and SOL were the only 2 it had created a 2-week demand. Not a strong one, but it closed above this red candle here. Hadn't tested it on this candle. Unfortunately, the wick only took out, so it only took out the high on a wick. So, and then obviously went straight into that 2-month level. But I think because it had made the 2-week demand, I already had the alert in before it hit the 2-month supply. I think I was hoping at this stage we'd get a run drop down into there before the final push, but then we didn't, and I think I left the alert in. So anyway, tiny bounce off there, didn't make it up to supply. Given this imbalance up here again, I haven't put a lower time frame. Sorry, a 4-day supply short on this, or a 5-day in that case, I think, as yet. So like I say, on any alts, any of the majors, if you see these structures, so you're looking for the critical things when you're looking at alts are what support do we have? In the case of most alts, let's look at NEAR again as the, DOT is the example, because that's probably the most common, what we see on alts. So most alts, all-time lows. Some are in, the ones that are around longer. So here's the September 2020. Some of the ones that have come into 2018, 2019 zones do have demand over here. But most of them have broken kind of a lot of this last, the proper last bull run we had in 2021. There's quite a lot of ones that have broken those zones. Still in downtrends. So you're looking at where's the major supply. So in the case of DOT here, it's 3 months is up there, but a lot of alts on this bounce, either they bounce more than DOT has, or they at lower zones have just hit 2-month supplies at this high. So be careful of those, because if that's the case, then we expect them to at least break this low and look for next demand if it exists. Then going on to the lower time frames, well, that's the monthly, but then many alts have this 3-week supply. So again, you're looking for rejections in that 3-week supply in the 4-day or 5 days inside them. Like I say, again, many alts have the same structure. I've alerted quite a few of the 3 weeks. The preference is, if you're going to short, is ones that look more like, yeah. So if you're looking for shorts on those 3-week supplies, look for ones that have broken the low. So DOT actually isn't a good example of that one. It hasn't broken down the low yet. So again, if this goes significantly lower down here, then I'm more inclined to look for shorts. But at the moment, it's still holding a higher low, so it's still tentative. And And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And ideally, we want to see others significantly lower before we start looking for the possibility of a significant bounce. So also, I've had so many alerts here, and I've just had such a mixture. I'll just show a few examples here, I think. So hype, like I told you, this was one on the bullish side. So we do have a few that look like this, but really not very many. So big 3 monthly demand down here. We'd come down, we had the wick into it. We'd come for retests. Like I said, unfortunately, it just did another wave before, so I was a little early. Well, this is what you're looking for. So you have these drops and these retracements. So while this is a decent move up and worth looking for, it's a bit choppy, looking for longs. You're looking for longs to see if this, the 3 month level appears still seem to be holding. But while it hasn't broken supply, you're really just trading in a range and in a downtrend. So it's not overly surprising, but you're looking for these types of early entries because it is crypto. And, when it does want to reverse much like this, it can just go. So unfortunately, I didn't look back at it here. There was a daily zone here, but I was kind of looking for, which I haven't got. So I'm looking for the 3 day down there. There's just a lot of chop. It's a little bit like BCH. It's a harder one. I've now alerted this new daily, but I think I alerted it around here, so it didn't come back for me and has 4 day. But as I said, really what you're looking for, okay, it ran through my first possible short alert here, went far too fast, so nobody actually would have traded that. And then it's come up to a zone here, which I didn't have alerted. I was looking for, again, this chop here, I was looking for higher, but made a 4 hour supply. So again, just looking for that early entry. Similarly here, it's now made an 8 hour supply. So this is a new entry. This is still a risk, and I don't deny this is still a risk entry. So the 4 hour, is a good, it's made a top, and it's at least going to give you a little bit of a drop. It did take some time. It did wick a bit higher in the zone, but it gave a decent drop. Once you've actually had the drop, so it's now made an 8 hour supply in there. But once you've actually had the drop, I haven't looked at lower time frame demand. You're looking at where lower time frame demand is. So there is an hourly here. So if you want to scalp this, actually it's already hit it, but just looking at the next zone down and look for scalps to get in long, like just stop buying tops if that's what you're doing. The problem we have now is when it's already got all the way down there, to then look for a short here, it becomes more risky. So if this had come from here, bounced and gone up and tested, that would have been a better setup. But because we've now come down into this hourly demand, you need to be watching here, is it going to create, if it creates a new 4 8 hour demand here, then there's more of a chance it will take out that zone. If it wants to go for another run, and given hype is one of the narrative coins that everybody gets really super excited about, this is not necessarily the best short entry right now. I will alert it because I think it's worth watching. Get rid of my get rid of the little drawings. Yeah, I do think it's worth watching because it's an 8 hour, and because so many coins do just die once they've had this pump. But because it's hype, there's a chance it might continue. So we'll see that. So yeah, as I say, that was one that had come off monthly demand, so therefore more likely to be reliable. River and some of these other sort of just random coins that just go for runs. River again, I was like super bullish on. Unfortunately, it's looking like it's not wanting to give me the short entry right now. Just to look now so I can see what I'm doing a little bit. So River, again, something to be very conscious of when you have monthly closes. When it closed the month here, it made a monthly demand. So this candle was 31st of December. So when it closed that, so as soon as it tested here, I was then like, right, this was potentially looking for longs. So hence we've got a lot of longs through here. It then got to a point, unfortunately, from here that it starts not coming back. It started looking like maybe it was being a bit dodgy here. So I tried to get a few shorts in here, but haven't had very good results. This one I was looking for if we were going to hold that zone for a long, in fact, but again came deeper, so started to get choppy and a bit annoying. Got a last bounce off here, but again didn't make a high, and then just started to die. At that, when we started to come down here, I put in this short entry. Sometimes they just don't test. But if we get a move back up here, I'd start looking for shorts up here. but it's choppy. So again, hard to read on the structure. You know, this is obviously retracement. So again, this could come all the way come down here before moving up, or it could just come into here and still this can still be bullish if it wants to. But I would say if we get a reaction here for the possibility of shorts, because when these coins do die, they really do die. I was looking at Clo yesterday. Let me see if I can find Clo quickly for you. Clo, where are you, Clo? Yeah, this is just you know, it didn't have the monthly demand like River does, but you know, we did, and this did give a lot of nice shorts here before dying, but you know, it already had, I think it had a 4-day demand in here, which I had alerted, nope, and it had a 3-week or 2-week demand in there, which I had alerted, nope. And now I put this time alert yesterday on, I was like, daily demand, last hurrah, if this is going to make a higher low. But we've seen so many others that have just die off this level. So like Folks, for example, another one that was just sort of ran and ran. And then I think I gave up on, I think we were talking about it, but I mean, just didn't give a re-entry for any shorts once it had done this blow off top, and then just ran back through all the demands, and now obviously it's just going to zero. And finally I got a short entry, nice one on this on there. So it's possible Clo just does this same thing here. My chart back to River because I want to keep the layout as it is. Anything else to say on these? CC is a nice one. So the ones I was looking at for possible longs, I think I'll just show you, maybe I can just show you in the Telegram channel. That might be a little bit easier. How are we doing for time? 46 minutes. Just the things you can look at, but also just know these are not necessarily high probability, because obviously we're in quite an unpleasant market right now. So GAIB was one of the ones. It needs to get through this 3-day, 5-day supply, but had made a weekly demand. You know, is holding long re-entries through here. So I haven't actually looked at this today, but keep an eye on that one. Let me just hide all that so we can see what we're doing. BINANCELIFE, a bit more of a tentative one, because you know it could do anything at this point, could just fall off a cliff here, but I think it just come into 4-day demand, so it's something I wanted to watch. It's a nice up move and then retracement through here, a little bounce there, you know, to just see again, can this hold? UAI was something I was watching for a long time off these lows, and then you know really pushed up into this supply, and now has made this 2-week demand. The drop yesterday brought it quite deep, and then it did bounce back up yesterday and hit my short entry as well, and now I think it's somewhere around this price. So that is something to keep an eye on, because it's holding reasonably well when you compare to other charts. So those are kind of the main ones. And then B2, I think I saw a bit later, and I haven't looked back at this today. Again, you know, has had some nice long entries, and now is like considering. So I think I did have a short alert here as of yesterday and deleted it, because I kind of thought this is consolidated long enough. If this runs, it's going to run through everything. So go and have a look and see what this has done today. See if this is still holding. That's worth a try. So those are the ones to watch on the long side. B2, UAI, BINANCELIFE. BINANCELIFE, I believe, is called BianRenSheng in MEXC, and possibly on Binance itself, even though it says BINANCELIFE. But this is the KSX chart. So yeah, BianRenSheng. Go check that chart. And then GAIB. GAIB. Those are the ones that I kind of liked yesterday for possible longs, and CC. So CC was also on that list. And then other than that, we've just got things hitting support, and you know, I've got alerts. So Cloud here has broken all-time low. Zen has hit support. Although Zcash, like I like the alignment of the privacy, so I had Zen hit support, but I haven't had alerts for Zcash or Dash or XMR. XMR had the massive blow off top, and again, that was something, if you're trading XMR, one thing I was watching for was the XMR BTC chart to hit supply, and as soon as my alert went for XMR BTC hitting supply, then we got a nice rejection on XMR US dollar. So again, nicely illustrating. So go and have a look at XMR if you want to sort of see an illustration of how to use the BTC chart if you're seeing something at all-time high. PIPPIN, again, getting aggressive short entries, just took out that high. It had a 4 hour supply up here, I think, and then it just took a wick through the high to the black arrow, and then before dropping down, now it's hit a long entry down here. See what happens on that. What else? So ENSO here. Again, just looking at some of these retests. This had actually hit this 4 hour on that wick, but I kind of thought maybe this will come up to here and then drop back down again. So something you could keep an eye on to the short side there. And then, yeah, so DBR. So these ones, the ones today that I've just had hitting short entries, they're just sort of random pumps off yesterday. We've got the monthly closes to deal with. So again, end of January, you need to check on your monthly charts. From what I've seen, actually, there aren't many. But it's the ones that are stronger that you might find new monthly demands on. But actually, in fact, most don't have new monthly supplies because they already went 3 week and they haven't consolidated for long enough to make new monthly supplies. So that's in their defense, although they already have the 3 weeks, which doesn't really help them. ALCH's an interesting one, and I just quite like this chart just for observational purposes. I was bear bias on this because you can see the big grey zone. This is an annual supply and it hit a monthly inside it. However, it just, kept rejecting, but then kept holding demand, reject, but then held demand and have a new alert there. Then at this point broke out of the triangle. I thought here we might have stop hunted the high, but in this case it just whipped down a little bit before running all the way up to the top here. So, and now we're on 2 week demand. So again, a bit of an interesting one. Like I'm not sure if this is still going to hold for a push. Some of these ones that have run weirdly, that like despite the fact Solana hasn't run, some of the coins that I was seeing on Solana shitcoin trading in the pump fund days, when was that? A year and a half ago. So, for example, ALCH, PIPPIN, ALCH, and GRIFFAIN. I'm not sure if GRIFFAIN did too much, but ALCH, obviously, ALCH, if you remember, Alchemist was very strong with Alchemy. ALCH strong, and PIPPIN very strong. So I don't know why those particular coins are pumping, or maybe because they're AI based. Again, don't really know much about what they do. But yeah, so see if this gets continuation. We did need to see also, actually, maybe this is create. So I've got that brown dash line there. So if this closes above 0.05, that might create a monthly demand. So just keep an eye on that in the next couple of days and see if we make a monthly demand. If we can get a decent bounce off here, then it might be worth looking for a long at 0.05 on a retest after Saturday, at the end of Saturday. So keep an eye on that one because it can run all the way up to there if it wants to. Other than that, yeah, just things like, so WLFI here hitting one of the actual stronger charts, but hitting 3 week demand in here. Again, just see if it reacts. And for the most part, what I'm just seeing, like I guess in summary on alts, for the most part, I'm seeing mostly quite good reactions. We get the odd thing that just goes crazy and runs through, but it's hard to either pick those for the long side. Let's just have a quick look at BULLA because that is the one that I know did a crazy thing yesterday. Like I say, unless you're some sort of genius, how do you know this is going to take off? I mean, again, it's obviously found some sort of a support here, but has nothing here to the left for a start, although I was looking at that support there. It took a wick down, obviously, and then I didn't look at it again. And then, yes, there's certainly entries here. And it's very easy to say in hindsight, oh yeah, there's entries. Yeah, you could have entered on the 12-hour demand there. Oh, look, it probably made a daily demand there. You could have entered there for sure. But there are many that look like this that didn't do this. Just delete some of these zones now. So how do you know it's going to be that one time at Bandcamp that it does this? Let me see, like Q is one of the other. So Q actually I did read, but just took a decade. So Q for a long time, I think I might have talked about this in another video as well. So again, this at least is cleaner. It had hit this demand. It came and here it made some stops. We were looking at more aggressive entries here. At this point, I also had an entry because it was a 5-day demand, but I said, actually, it could well take these trend line stops. So then got the entry here straight up into supply. And then I kept looking back at it, but it really just went sideways for ages. And I think I didn't see that it made this weekly, but also thought that this is a better entry down here if we come into there. And then the next thing I knew, I think after the dump 2 days ago was that, it took a wick down and then just suddenly took off. But that's after 2 weeks of consolidation. So, like I say, if you can read those things, then please answers on a postcard of how you actually figure out which one's going to run when. You know, if you're looking at 15-minute time frame, I think this is basically impossible. Maybe BULLA, sure. And certainly on CT, you'll see some people boasting about it, but don't trust any of them because I'm pretty sure they're not actually in those trades, and they're just either that or they're the ones pumping them, because obviously there's people with a lot larger followings than me that if they say buy BULLA now because it looks good, then if their 100,000 followers all goes and buys BULLA, it's going to pump it, and don't trust them anyway. Anyway, so on Q here, I did set an alert for a retest of this 4-5-day demand in there, but it hasn't come down for that yet. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I think the only other thing I said I'd talk about was the football coins, actually, but I'm not going to do that right now because I need to have a break. Maybe I'll do a little like 5-minute video, 10-minute video later on the football coins, just so we can, that's probably wise actually with hindsight, because then I can actually look at what they might do come June, July. Is that when football starts, World Cup season? But anyway, if you don't get to see that video, do go and have a look back at the football coins. Let me just see where Bitcoin is after the hour that I've been streaming. Okay, so I really didn't get where that's Ether. Bitcoin didn't get very far, so didn't manage to get up and test that 4-hour supply. Did go through the immediate hourly. But Ether didn't, so Ether's got hourly supply there, didn't get very far at all. So we might need to see some more consolidation here, or if this is going to drop today, I don't know. But really, not looking very strong at the moment. And the only other thing would be, just quickly see what the indices are doing. And so what we did have is obviously a big drop on the dollar. The one thing that was really apparent actually on Bitcoin, got literally 3 minutes left, so I need to be careful, is that when Bitcoin was running a little bit last week after the first drop, Bitcoin Korea wasn't. And if you I overlaid, I haven't showed it, but I overlaid Bitcoin Korea, Bitcoin Pound, because somebody asked me about it, and Bitcoin Yen over Bitcoin US dollar. Bitcoin US dollar was rallying, the others were just going sideways. And that's because the dollar was dumping. So now the dollar's started going back up again. Like, I think really what we're seeing so much on Bitcoin is it just reacting to TradFi. I just don't think it's got liquidity. I didn't check ETFs as of today, but they've really had very little volume either way. Obviously, we're now getting gold and silver have started a decent sized drop as of yesterday, but still holding demand. And similarly, the indices. So we've got a little bit mixed with the global ones, but the US ones are looking a little bit weaker now. We've got US 2000, Russell is dropping a bit. Had some nice shorts on US 30, S&P. And again, so still all in macro up structures and still holding local demands in some cases. However, I think those things are also dragging Bitcoin down. Anyway, I shall end there. I hope that's useful to you. If you've got any requests for next video, then do let me know. If you've got any thoughts on the football, the World Cup or anything like that, also let me know. And I hope this is helpful. Please like and subscribe if you're interested, because that gets me more interest and makes me more inspired to do more of these videos more often for you. So I hope everybody has a good weekend. Bye.